this, that onto this planet there's a great deal of dumping has gone on. Stuff from the nearby galaxy. Not this galaxy, but the next galaxy over, and so forth has gone on here. I know they take political prisoners and guys who they don't want around. But it's less personal than you think. They just have excess population, so they start to get rid of their excess population. You see, they've got a revolt, or you're on the wrong side of a war or something like that, and they pick you up in droves and ice cube you and throw you into a sea someplace. I know this planet has been subjected to that, and several planets in this immediate end of this galaxy have been subjected to that. That I know.
They were imported. They were actually, the trick was to shoot somebody, disable somebody, very often a needle into a lung, and at the same time to hit him with frozen alcohol and glycol, which preparation is guaranteed to pick up a Satan. All he had to do was pick him up and put him in a refrigerator, and they had him, boy. Just as he tried to exteriorize from the body, there he was, frozen. And they threw him into collection points, boxed them up in boxes, threw them into space planes, which are the exact DC-8. The DC-8 airplane is the exact copy of the space plane of that day. And no difference, except the DC-8 had fans, propellers on it, and the space plane didn't.
Well, it starts like this. It starts like this. I was up in the Van Allen belt. This is factual. And I don't know why they're scared of the Van Allen belt, because it's simply hot. You'd be surprised how warm space is. Down amongst the clouds and so forth, it can get pretty cold and damp. But you get well up and sunlight shining around, that sort of thing. It's quite hot. And the Van Allen belt was radioactively hot. A lot of photons get trapped in that area and so forth. And I was up there watching the sunrise. Well, that was very interesting, and my perception was very good, and I was good taking a look at Norway and Essex and the places around, you know, and getting myself sort of oriented. And then something happened to me that I didn't know quite what had happened to me. I thought some facsimiles must have appeared in front of me, but they didn't look like facsimiles. And some other things happened, and I had a feeling like I might possibly go into the sun, and a few other little uncomfortablenesses there were, that wasn't what awed me. But I got confused. I got confused because the sun was suddenly larger, and then it was smaller. And somehow or another I was doing a change of space process that I myself was not familiar with. And it made me sort of bite off my Satan fingernails just a little bit, you know.
There are saucer crews here. There's all sorts of things on Earth here from the 5th Invader Force. Very interesting. This is directly and violently in opposition to the 4th Invader Force. And the 5th Invader Force, out of its own protection, took over Venus. All relatively modern times. Took over Venus and tried to stabilize the Venusian. If you called a 5th invader, though, a Venusian, he would probably shoot you out of hand, because it would be a horrible insult. They merely monitor the government of Venus. And they leave Mars strictly alone. Now, this is really roughly a rundown of the, quote, political situation in the solar system.
The entirety of Roman Catholicism, the devil, all this sort of thing, that is all part of our sexes.
Mary Sue gave the cue on this thing. She said, look at how hard they have to work to keep you from being OT. Hey, now, that's quite a thought. Isn't that quite a thought? Now, you look at this. You look at this now. The complete idiocy of it. Somebody sits up on Venus. There are probably some other stations around up in the system. This one's on Venus. I notice that we all believe that Venus has a methane atmosphere and is unlivable. I almost got run down by a freight locomotive the other day. Didn't look very uncivilized to me. I'm allergic to freight locomotives. They always running into you.
not really interested in Earth at all as such. Because Earth is a heavy gravity planet. And who the hell wants a heavy gravity planet? Earth would be much better off lying in chunks in an orbit around the sun. But naturally, that's a pretty rough assignment, blowing up something this size and putting it around, so nobody would do that. But completely aside from that fact, Earth has been used consistently as a prison. And it is a prison. And it is heavily screened. There are installations in Mongolia. There are installations in the Pyrenees here on Earth. There are installations down the mountains of the moon in Africa, which pick up very often people on death.
Actually, have you ever noticed how a Negro in particular, down south, where they're pretty close to the soil, personifies mess? The gate post and the wagon and the whip and anything around there, a hat. Hey, they talk to him, you know. What's the matter with you, hat? They imbued them with personality.
There is the low-level part of the technique, which consists of A, R, C on each dynamic. And you can carefully plot up and pick up A, R, C on each part of every dynamic. And go over that carefully through the line till you will key out or partly disintegrate out each and every bar there is to your state of beingness. But this is done as a present-time technique. And Technique 80 is 100% a present-time technique. Its capability is to bring you up to a level where, while still in a body, you are capable of being and experiencing with every part of the universe while you're still in that body. That's 80.
Now, blindness is just getting these two groups of attention units off to the side so they can't see through the optic nerve. That's hysterical blindness. Nothing much to it. If you're going to resolve a case of blindness, just get them to run the attention units, which should be standing behind the optic nerve, and then find what they did about seeing. By the way, blind men usually have burned somebody down with sight, or think they have. Fascinating. And they'll never suspect this one. And you ask them about this, it'll show up on the E-meter, and you start to run it. Boy, do they protest. But if you run it, their sight should turn on.
Now, the messed universe is all very well, but it's all illusion. One doesn't want an illusion, so he can't have an illusion. And when he was very young, why, Christ was all right. He was very friendly, as a matter of fact, and so on. But that's mostly people, you know, they have to believe in that sort of thing. And they did once, but it requires nothing but faith. And, of course, they can't have any faith anymore. And they did have hopes on that once in a while, but actually religion doesn't lead anybody any place in the final analysis, because you never get your wish anyway. So, of course, one can't survive on the basis of spirits and religion and so forth. So that leaves just, of course, God. And, of course, God naturally exists because there is all this space around here, and this space is obviously surviving. So, of course, it's obviously surviving. Of course, space itself is liable to collapse, but the prime mover unmoved is not liable to collapse because he created all this, and maybe he can't either, and nobody yet has come up with as flat a can't survive as God will never again be able to create another messed universe. But if we mentioned it, brother, it'd be out in the streets.
The entirety of Roman Catholicism, the devil, all this sort of thing, that is all part of our sexes.
But although I don't think you'd have very much pleasure out of kissing a girl from Jupiter, that's a heavy gravity planet. If you stepped on the planet Jupiter in one of these meat bodies that you presently have, you would become a pancake promptly, you see. And what atmosphere it has lies in seas of liquid air.
and so on. We might say this is somewhat rigorous as an environment, not completely similar to Russia, but well, so you do get these various variations. And it's not all that horrifying, however. You find somebody running around planet Jupiter, he'd be built to withstand that climatic condition and that gravitic condition and so forth, and his legs might be a bit modified and his arms and that sort of thing, but he probably would look like an Eskimo.
Then, although a lot of people will say carelessly, well, God is everywhere, remember that this was an idea which was introduced rather latterly in Christian religion. The God of which they speak, of whom they speak continually, is Yahweh. Lord knows how it's pronounced, because it is so secret that nobody really is supposed to be able to pronounce it, so they omitted all of the vowels in the word, and they spell it only with its consonants. So Lord knows how this word is to be pronounced, but more agreed upon pronunciation among scholars so they could talk about it is Yahweh. And this is the Christian God. But he lives in a trunk with a leopard skin. That's right. That is the full story on it.
So I thought it might be a good thing to know in event of atomic war that might have some chemical assist, so maybe the people who were only slightly frazzled and so forth could come out of it. And it would have to be very simple. It would have to be some common drug, some common pill. Well, there's societies in England that are having an awfully good time fighting the cigarette. They can't do anything else, so they fight cigarettes. And they say that the cigarette causes lung cancer. And you've been hearing something of this, I'm sure. Yeah, not smoking enough will cause lung cancer. Not smoking enough will cause lung cancer. If anybody is getting a cancerous activity in the lung, the probabilities are that it's radiation dosage coupled with the fact that he smokes. And what it does is start to run out the radiation dosage, don't you see? But I'd say that would be better than not running out any of the radiation dosage at all. And the number of lung cancer cases, which exist, of course, that don't smoke, are just forgotten about by these societies, but they are very numerous. Anyway, there's nicotinic acid in that cigarette. Inevitably, on inhalation of tobacco, you will get some of this phenomena of face flush. But in view of the fact that a cigarette isn't pushing its smoke over the outside of the body, but on the inside, of course, you run it out internally.
You'll find, by the way, another manifestation is pre-clears will shift identities and borrow facsimiles like mad. There's what they call the Christ game. And that game has been played and played and played and played. Honest to Pete, these cards are just so thin. They've been laid down amongst the coffee cups and so forth of the whole universe. You'll find out thousands of years before the year 1 AD Earth, you will have facsimiles and dolls made up like Christ. Fact 1, 1,000,000 years ago, is occasionally rigged with Christ and the devil and an angel. It's a fascinating thing. It's an old game. Here on Earth there was undoubtedly Christ. One of the reasons he swept in so suddenly and he would go forward so hard is he had a good assist back of him in terms of an implant.
Every man is then shown to have been crucified, so don't think that it's an accident that this crucifixion, they found out that this applied. Somebody somewhere on this planet, back about 600 BC, found some pieces of R6. And I don't know how they found it, either by watching Mad Men or something, but since that time they have used it, and it became what is known as Christianity. The man on the cross. There was no Christ, but the man on the cross is shown as every man. So, of course, each person seeing a crucified man has an immediate feeling of sympathy for this man. Therefore, you get many PCs who says they are Christ. Now, there's two reasons for that. One is the Roman Empire was prone to crucify people. So a person can have been crucified. But in R6, he is shown as crucified.
The magic cults of the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th centuries in the Middle East were fascinating. The only modern work that has anything to do with them is trifle wild in spots, but it's fascinating work in itself, and that's work written by Aliester Crowley, the late Aliester Crowley, my very good friend. And he did himself a splendid piece of aesthetics built around those magic cults. It's a very interesting reading to get a hold of a copy of the book, quite rare, but it can be obtained, The Master Therion, Therion, The Master Therion by Aliester Crowley. He signs himself The Beast, the mark of the beast, 666. Very, very something or other.